We're going to talk about some of the core beliefs that people have about money and how understanding those beliefs and what they mean can, in fact, help you improve your financial picture. Plus, another week, another study out of Vanguard that unfortunately comes to a troubling conclusion about when people roll their money over, that they are in fact missing out on opportunities for growth based on where those rollover dollars wind up. Now, that is costing people a lot of money. We're going to make sure that's not happening to you here on Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of Central Florida's longest running radio program is coming to you on a host of channels throughout the Central Florida region. Also a top 25 financial planning podcast as well. My name is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning. Joining me this week on the program, Christina Lamb. How are you this morning?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Very good. Pleasure, as always, to have you on the program, part of the team at Nelson Financial Planning. So, Christina, before we get started on all that, I saw an interesting statistic that I thought would be a fun way to start off the show. So, you have a dog.
I do.
And you have a kid.
I do.
That is good. 1 and 1. Right?
1 and 1.
Okay.
1 and done. So
I have three. I have 3 kids, and I currently have 2 dogs. At one point in the past, I had a rabbit and a cat. I didn't. I did because we were taking care of them because the kids weren't taking care of them. And then some tropical fish. Right?
Yes, so we had a guinea pig and also some
I remember
fish.
The guinea pig.
Yes, I brought the guinea pig to the office one day. He needed to go to a special vet.
Yes, I remember the guinea pig. So,
which I think brings us to the statistic.
It does, right, because he had to go to a very special, your guinea pig special vet. This is this is a fascinating statistic. It comes to us courtesy of the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and it says that Americans spent $186 billion on pet products and services in the year 2023, which is more than they spent on childcare.
I believe it. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 aisles dedicated to animals in almost every store.
How bad was the guinea pig vet bill?
$125 just to be seen, and he had like an ingrown tooth, which was like another $600.
So $725
for my $25 guinea pig.
You know they serve those as appetizers down here.
I know, we talked about that when I brought him.
So anyway,
we did not eat him.
Understandably, he's clearly a pet. So I guess in a way you could say that the world is going to the dogs, right? Especially when you start to look at that number. What's interesting about that number is, a lot of clients, a lot of folks have pets, and you got to make sure that's a line item in the budget at the end of the day. If you're planning to retire.
If you think about dog food, vet visits, even just normal ones, treats, cutesy things, toys. That
to
it
show
all
your
adds
love.
up.
Yes,
it all adds up. They need that holiday sweater.
But speaking of things going to the dogs, this past week, of course, the vice presidential debate. Did you watch that?
I did watch that, and surprisingly, I was impressed. I don't know why, but I was not expecting that. They seemed to work really well together, had educated answers. I thought they did a decent job.
It was refreshing. And it's funny, I think the next day, Wednesday, you and I we bumped into each other in the kitchen, and we were talking a little bit about it, and you're like, wait a minute, how come these people aren't the top of the ticket?
Yeah, like, why aren't they running? They sounded way better than our 2 options that we currently have.
Oh, goodness. And then, of course, throw in all of the other craziness that's been going on, particularly this past week. The Middle East really just kind of exploding, for lack of a better word. And then, of course, the election. Yes, it's 30 days out as of the air date of this program. It's 30 days out. So, and I always get that reminder. So when you're coming down coming out Lee Road to turn into our office, there's a billboard, and that billboard is about generally voting and encouraging people to vote. But it keeps track of the number of days. Have you seen that? Have you seen that billboard?
I do. I happen to turn there right by executive, and it flicks, so I don't get to see it every day as it switches over, but I have caught it.
Yeah. Keep an eye. Hard to believe. 30 days
Coming
out.
up fast.
And certainly with that background, okay, you certainly may think that the world is going to the dogs, but the market just did something that it hasn't done since 1997, in over 27 years. Christina, what is that thing that the market just completed at the end of the third quarter?
Sure. So it's the first time since 1997 that the S&P 500 has been up over 20% in the first 3 quarters of the year.
So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good, that's a pretty impressive run. Obviously, you've got a lot of these headlines. You've got an election. You've got all of the stuff that's really kind of blowing up in the Middle East happening right now, the impact on oil, all of those kinds of things are happening dramatically. The offset, of course, is that people are still spending money. The Fed helped out the whole situation by lowering interest rates by a half a percentage point 2 or 3 weeks ago, and so what's interesting about that. That 0.5% rate cut occurring in September really did kind of help the markets for the third quarter and for the month of September.
Yeah. September is normally not a really great month in the market. Generally, it's a bad month, and so this year, basically since 2019, it's the first time that we've had a positive month. Or positive September. So that's been about 5 years.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that? Yeah. That so not only did sort of September fight the trend, that 20% plus rise in the S&P 500 through the first 9 months. Beyond it having happening since 1997, a 27-year period of time. It's actually only the 10th time going back over the past 75 years where, in fact, you've seen the markets go up that much within the first three months or 3 quarters of the year. And what's interesting is sort of in all but one of those previous 10 times, the S&P 500 finished the year even higher than where it did at the end of the third quarter. So that's some positive news to be thinking about, even if you are thinking that the world is literally going to the dogs, right?
Well, only going to the dogs with respect to spending to childcare in 2023.
Correct. Certainly some interesting stuff. Also interesting stuff, we want to make sure to remind our listening audience as well to vote for us, right? It's an election season. It's an election year. So why not also have to vote for your favorite financial planning company? We're talking about the Best of Winter Park contest put on by the Winter Park Chamber of Commerce. You can go to the Winter Park Chamber of Commerce Best of Winter Park voting and vote for us. And I think you can vote for us like every day if you want.
You can vote every day.
Yeah, so there you go. Stuff the ballot box just like we do in America. No, we don't do that in America. No, I'm just kidding. But vote for us and vote for us on a daily basis if you would like. So we appreciate that, all of that. Nice little contest going on with the Winter Park Chamber of Commerce. At the end, they do a great little event in the park.
Outside,
Remember
it's
that?
beautiful.
Yeah, we
it's
did that
really
last
nice.
year. Yeah, very nice indeed. So with that, we're going to take a break and return here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Christina Lamb of Nelson Financial Planning. Make sure you check us out on our website at Nelson Financial Planning if you want to learn more about how we can help you improve your life. So have you ever wondered why you behave the way that you do when it comes to money? Maybe you're frugal, maybe you spend too much, whatever the case may be. But there's some sort of core beliefs that people have about their money that ultimately drive a lot of the decisions that they make from a financial perspective. So on this segment of Dollars and Cents, we're going to talk about sort of those 4 different types of core beliefs that we have about money and how they can impact you and sort of what you need to do to try and get on track when it comes to thinking about money. So welcome on into Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, also a top 25 financial planning podcast. Make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Once there, hit the subscribe button so then that way you can get notified when we upload new content, which we do each and every week, of course. My name is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary. With me is Christina Lamb, who is also a certified financial fiduciary, along with being an IRS enrolled agent, part of one of the sort of differentiating services that we offer our clients at Nelson Financial Planning, where we really do dig deep onto the tax side of things and ultimately to the extent of preparing client tax returns as well.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good time to start thinking about planning for next year. If you haven't already and you have a more complex tax scenario, it would be a great time to kind of come in for a pre-meeting for 2024 taxes.
A little strategy session, if you will. Always a good thing. And, it's one of those things that I always kind of laugh at, when the notion of having investments or planning a retirement or creating retirement income, you've really got to have that in-depth understanding of what the tax implications are. And not just, kind of estimate or approximate it. It's so much more important to really have that finely tuned, through an actual tax return, tax prep, tax analysis type of software package.
Yeah, from a tax professional. And, you'd be surprised. You think some returns are more basic, but as you move into retirement, there really can be some savings gathered by making sure you're not jumping into the next bracket, maybe taking money out from a different bucket. So over time, those tax savings can really add up.
Good money habits require that you understand the tax implications of what your investments and income are all about. And so that's our segue to the topic in this segment of Dollars and Cents. So there are identified sort of 4 money habits or money scripts, if you will, that people have. But many of those are, of course, started early, right? Started when we were young, and based on our perspective and how we grew up. You were sharing a funny story the other day about your dad, and kind of what they'd make you do. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I give many of my spending habit credits to my dad. At a very young age, he started teaching me about money. And while my parents were very generous about paying for whatever expenses I had, there were a few items that I always had to pay for. So back when I was 16, my dad would actually run a tally of like every little thing that I borrowed money for that they wouldn't normally cover. So for example, like my car payment, or if I needed a stamp, he would literally put 32 cents on the tally because I borrowed a stamp when you had to like write a check and like mail your payment in. It used to drive me crazy. I was like, it's 32 cents, Dad. Come on, give me a break. Like, you just gave me $100 for a prom dress, but you're worried about the 32 cents for, a stamp.
Accountability, there's nothing wrong with that. I, by the way, you're not old enough to remember 32-cent stamps.
I remember like 29-cent stamps. I actually looked up how much a stamp was.
Back then, just to verify.
Just to make sure I wasn't forgetting.
We're not fibbing on Dollars and Cents.
Absolutely.
We are fact-checking fiends, if you will, including what the price of a postage stamp was when Christina was 16. So now everybody can figure out your age, but that's okay.
But the fact of the matter is that really made me realize how much every little thing you spend money on counts. And, my husband may say I'm a little frugal on the bad side, but we always make sure that we want to have, enough to spend, enough for retirement, and enough to play.
Well, and I think, you raise a good point of, the environment that we were brought up in certainly does a lot in terms of creating our core belief about money. Certainly from my perspective growing up, we didn't have any money in our household. I mean, my mom was a school teacher, was raised by single mother, 2 kids, and school teachers back then weren't paid not paid much anyway now. But
not much has changed.
I assure you back in the 70s, they weren't, paid much at all. So, so that does really sort of drive that perspective. But at the end of the day, there's sort of identified 4 core beliefs about money, and we're going to go through them just to kind of set the stage. So, Christina, what's the first one that kind of people comes up to mind?
So the first one is money avoidance. So this is when people see money in a negative light. So they think that money makes you greedy. They may not ask for a raise or may not want to win the lottery because they think that that's going to change their life in a bad way.
And then, I guess the flip side of that, the other side of that would be that a core belief that where you focus on sort of worshiping money. I think that's probably one of the worst core beliefs that you can have about money, where you're using money or thinking that money is the only way to find happiness, or you keep buying things to improve how you feel about yourself or your well-being. But at the end of the day, that sort of money worship can lead directly to a tremendous amount of overspending.
Yep. The next one is money status. So this is when people flaunt their money and their wealth, or they value people based on their wealth standing. So this would be the typical, like, keeping up with the Joneses. You want to be like them. You want to have what they have, things of that nature.
And then the last one is one that is probably the one that is most closely associated with having a good overall financial wellness, and that is this notion of money vigilance. So what that means is that people are sort of cautious about spending, diligent about saving and investing, and really have that sort of a little healthy dose of anxiety helps to keep you on track. But I guess at the end of the day, as humans, we probably all kind of have a little bit of little elements of all of these sometimes, depending upon the situation.
Oh, absolutely. But the key point is you want to identify which category you fall into, and that'll help you address any problems you might have with finances in that particular area versus overspending or even oversaving.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to look at sort of those behavior patterns and think necessarily that just sort of one is worse than the other. It's a little bit of a misconception. If you pay your bills on time, if you're managing your debt, putting money towards retirement, then, you should feel good about your finances and not try and get too stressed out about them. On the flip side, if you do have a bunch of credit card debts, and certainly these days having a bunch of credit card debts would stress anybody out with the 25, 30% rates. It's just unbelievable. Then that's really where, where you would need to start to look at maybe changing those money beliefs.
Right, and this would be the perfect time for what they would call a rescript, or to make a correction in your money habits so that you're not falling too extreme into one scenario or another. So in the instance of spending excessively, if that makes you happy, maybe you take a minute. We actually have a coworker who does something that I love about buying things. So when he goes to the store, if he sees something he wants, he never buys it the first time. He writes it on a list and revisit it the next time that he goes shopping, and he'll see if he really truly wants it. So is it really going to make him happy, or does he just want to buy something?
Such a great idea, such great suggestion in terms of how to think about that, in terms of trying to curb those money habits to prevent poor money decisions, poor money behavior. That is for sure. So we're going to have a few more thoughts about this when we return after these messages. So stay tuned with us through the break here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Christina Lamb of Nelson Financial Planning. So we're talking about some of the emotions, some of the core beliefs about money that ultimately guide us in the decisions that we're making, and certainly hard to ultimately really try and assess those. And it's important to get an understanding of what they are, because certainly it can be, if you're so vigilant about money, for example, then and that may be from a background of growing up without a lot of money, which is probably the most accurate picture for me personally. It can certainly sort of dominate things and dominate how you see things and how you think about money. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And as time goes on and your situation changes, it's best to acknowledge that those things have happened, and there may need to be a rescript or adjustments that need to take place. Even if you do make a good amount of money, the rescript may be it's okay to spend a little bit. You don't want to just save everything and never enjoy it.
Well, and we see that all the time, right?
Of course,
in the office.
Yes.
I mean, with folks that have saved a tremendous amount of money. And I often say, well, the good news is that you've got this money because you were diligent in saving this money, but it's okay to spend a little bit. And we've certainly seen those conversations many, many times in the office with clients.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I have personally experienced is, it is important to save, but you do need to enjoy a little bit now.
Yeah, and I think that's the other part of it is, don't be afraid to sort of challenge those beliefs. Talk to your friends, talk to your family about it. Certainly the notion of discussing that and talking about others is always a good thing.
Yep. As with so many things in life, balance is the key. You just want to have a little bit of everything.
When it comes to money and how you view it and how you use it, that is certainly the case. Balance is key. Not just in how you think about money, but and how you invest it and how you use it and all of those kinds of things. That is for sure. One of the things that is most interesting is some of these studies that have been coming out of Vanguard of late involving sort of money beliefs that people have when it comes to rolling over from a prior employer. There's often that course of action that people take where they take that old 401k or old 403b or old 401a and they say, okay, I'm going to just roll that over into an IRA. But the reality is that based on this Vanguard study, there's turning into be a major cost for investors, because what's happening with the vast majority of these rollovers is they're winding up in cash and then it's getting left there and it's forgotten there. Now, I'm not talking about where you might make that decision from an investment perspective that says, hey, I want to go into a money market with my rollover. That's not what we're talking about here. What this study looked at is just folks just rolling it over, leaving it in cash, and in a lot of cases simply didn't realize that. So on this segment of the program, we're going to talk to you about what you need to do in order to make sure that that is not happening to you. And if it is, how you can correct that. So that's our topic here on this segment of Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of the top 25 financial planning podcasts out there on the World Wide Web. So make sure you check out our website at nelsonfinancialplanning.com. And there, if you go there, you'll see the icons that will immediately connect you over to those various podcast platforms, in addition to our YouTube channel, where you can see Christina and I sitting here in the Nelson Financial Planning studio located at our office in Winter Park, and doing the show and engaging during the course of the program. My name, of course, is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning. Joining me on this week's episode of Dollars and Cents, Christina Lamb, also a certified financial fiduciary and IRS enrolled agent. So this Vanguard study is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I was really surprised by these numbers. I found them kind of staggering. So Vanguard surveyed a group of investors. They all had rolled over retirement assets from a prior employer to an IRA, but kept that money in cash. So 2/3 of those people had no idea that it was entirely in cash. And then 50% of those people thought that the IRA custodian would just move them over at some point from the cash position.
Yeah, that's the very definition of what we know of as inadvertent inaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's now the process of getting your money from your employer is often a painful process, right? You typically have to call a 1-800 number. Oftentimes there's specific paperwork, multiple pages of paperwork that you have to do when you do that. And so that's a time-consuming process. It's painful in order to get that money out of the clutches of your prior employer. And so it is a process to go through and ultimately to get that done.
Yeah, you're basically running through the gauntlet. It's something you didn't want to do anyways. You finally find the time to take care of it or motivate yourself. And you may think you're done just because you filled out the paperwork and you did the transfer. But now it's not invested and it's sitting there in cash. And you know, you thought you were done, but you're really not from an investment standpoint.
And what this study out of Vanguard is showing is basically it's really a two-part equation. It's one part to get your hands on the money and go through that process. Mm-hmm. But then the second part is you can't assume that the money's just going to randomly get invested. It is staggering when you look at these numbers, just how many people thought that money was just going to get invested simply by doing this process of rolling it over. I mean, this notion of inadvertent inaction where you're trusting yourself to take a simple action later that you probably should take immediately, that's creating a major issue, costing investors a tremendous amount of money, that's for sure.
Yeah, I really found the concept sort of interesting, especially with the way we do things here. I think in this circumstance, it really pays to have an advisor. I mean, if you rolled over assets here, part of that rolling process would be to discuss your incoming financial objectives for that new money. I mean, very rarely would we put it in cash unless if that's what you specifically asked for.
Sure, that's exactly right. And yeah, that obviously comes with a cost. Anytime you're using a third party to help give you guidance, then there's going to be a cost with that. But if you think about the lost costs that occur when people do these rollovers.
Versus the return of having it invested, though.
Correct. Because this is the other part of the Vanguard study. And the other part of the Vanguard study is that the Vanguard looked at rollovers that occurred in 2015. Correct. And found that 7 years later, okay, 28% of those were still sitting in cash. Just unbelievable when you stop and think about it.
I mean, it's crazy. 7 years, and this was, so 2015 to 2022, great years in the market, average that out at least 9% per year. You would have doubled your money.
Yeah.
Versus sitting in cash, you're getting absolutely nothing, zero, because interest rates were so low back then.
Correct, yeah, because cash was certainly not paying anything back in that period from 2015 to 2022. So bottom line, here's what you got to do now, right? Take a look at your accounts. No matter where they are, no matter what you think you might have done with them, chances are that you didn't fully complete the process. And see how much you actually have in cash. Is that really what you wanted? That's for sure.
Right. And if it's not what you wanted, change it now. There's a lot of different options you can use. If you don't know what to do, the safest bet is a balance fund. Sure. It's half stock, half bonds usually, or some variation of that. You can also use something called an allocation fund. So you pick a market segment, sort of like growth or growth and income, and it is even more diversified than a mutual fund. So that would be another option. Or worst case scenario, just put it in a target rate.
Yeah, we don't even really like those because I think they're kind of, just very cookie cutter, but something is better than nothing. Some investment strategy of sorts is better than nothing. And it is shocking as you look at this study out of Vanguard just how dramatically that is affecting investors and ultimately affecting their return. Well, we're going to take a break and continue after these messages here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Christina Lamb of Nelson Financial Planning. So another episode of Dollars and Cents. This is the final segment. Hopefully you found a range of interesting topics and useful information. You can always reach out to us on our website at Nelson Financial Planning, or you can comment on any of our podcast platforms or on our YouTube channel. In particular, if there's something that you would like us to talk about, and it's a topic that we haven't hit for a while. Of course, over the course of the past 35 years of this program, chances are, times 50 weeks or 52 weeks out of the year, chances are we've probably hit the topic at some point, but it may be a while since we last hit the topic. So if there is that, feel free to reach out to us. If you go to our website, you'll see the Contact Us little box. You can always fill that out and say, hey, we want to hear about topic A, B, and C, if you will, on the radio program. We actually just did a program about fraud alerts and credit freezes as a result of someone's comment on that. So we're always looking for good engagement out of our listening audience, and we appreciate that. Welcome into the program. Of course, this is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. I'm Joel Garris. That's Christina Lamb. So some interesting stats that we kicked off the program for our listening audience.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I think a surprising one, considering all the bad news we've been hearing lately in the world. The S&P 500 is up over 20% over the last 3 quarters, which is quite a feat. Normally, especially in September, we're down a month. So this is only the 10th time that's happened in the past 10 years, and the last time, or the past. Or 10 times since, yeah. So the last time was, since 1950, and the last time was 1997, which was over 25 years ago.
Yeah, no, and history says that actually bodes relatively well for a strong finish to the year. 9 out of those 10 previous times the market finished higher for the year. So
maybe the election won't be so bad for us.
Let's hope. Let's hope. That would be the part of the conversation we were having at the beginning of the show about maybe things going to the dogs. Yes, literally and figuratively. Some interesting numbers in terms of how people are spending their money. The cost, pets and pet supplies, more than how much people spend on child care, based on the Bureau of Economic Data, looking at data for the year 2023. So, which I guess is a natural segue to some core beliefs about money, how we use money. Do we use it on the pets or on the kids? Let's recap for our listening audience, Christina, those 4 themes or 4 core beliefs about
Sure.
money.
So there's money avoidance, there is money worship, there is money status, and there is money vigilance. Money vigilance is the one that kind of has a little bit of the balance of everything you're considering spending and saving.
Well, and as we were talking about as well, so much of our views as adults, when we achieve adulthood, is based on those personal experiences as children. And certainly, Christina, you were sharing that story of how your dad kind of kept track of everything, and made you pay for stuff that they weren't going to pay for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really formed, my spending habits going forward, even when I was in my 20s and 30s. So the most important thing is to identify your script and, learn how to re-script if you start to see some unhealthy financial behaviors. And then this way you can always make some changes. And as with anything, balance is the key. You just don't want to be saving too much, and you don't want to be spending too much.
Yeah, and you would think, hey, it's a core belief. I don't necessarily need to really think about it, going forward. But we were talking about the example that we see a lot in the office where, if you've been vigilant, right, and achieved saving money and are retired, then it's hard to shift away from that. We see that all the time where there's a reluctance to sort of spend money on stuff that maybe you haven't spent money on before. Maybe to have a little bit more of a belief about maybe money status.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to get a little bit nicer car, or maybe you want to sit closer to the front of the plane, that kind of thing.
Well, I think it goes to a habit. Like,
right.
For so long, these folks have not spent and lived so frugally. At that age, when you're so set in your ways, in their 60s, let's just say, for then when they retire, it's really hard for them to convert to that.
Right. It's correct. It's hard to change those beliefs, which is why evaluating those and reflecting on them makes so much sense. Similarly, you should be evaluating and checking out your investment allocation, particularly for how much is in cash. Pretty dramatic results coming out of Vanguard in terms of some of the studies that they're doing on just kind of the inadvertent inaction that many people wind up taking when it comes to their money, particularly in the example of rolling over dollars out of a prior employer retirement plan and into an IRA. And I can understand, Christina, where that gets to be an issue for people, because it really is a two-part process, isn't it?
Yeah. The rolling over of the funds from the old employer to a new place is one thing, and then coming up with an actual investment allocation is a whole nother item.
Way too many people think that when they do that rollover, then there's an investment allocation that sort of pre-propagates. And that's understandable, given that a lot of 401k platforms sort of operate that way with
There's
target
like a
date
default.
funds. Right. There's always a default. Usually that's target date. But when you do the rollover and go into an IRA, I mean, the very definition of what an IRA is that's an individual retirement account. So you, the individual, got to have your act together on it.
And, there was another little tidbit in that study, and 55% of all direct IRA contributions stayed in cash for at least 12 months.
Yeah, that's just people that are putting money in to fund their IRA.
Right. You make a contribution for the year.
Right. And it's still over half of it is still sitting in cash.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot. We see that a lot as well, where I'm like, well, that's there's $7,000, there's $8,000 sitting in cash, at this other provider, and they're like, oh, that was the contribution. I was like, well, but the contribution just is sitting there in cash, which certainly this study confirms that, where that's actually true for the majority of those contributions that are made to retirement accounts.
Which leads to the importance of an advisor.
Right.
If there was an active advisor on the account and was actively being managed, that shouldn't have happened.
Certainly with that other statistic that showed that 28% of all IRA rollovers in 2015 were still entirely in cash 7 years later.
It's a long time. 7 years.
Long time.
You would have doubled your money if it was invested.
Correct, particularly during that period of time of which Vanguard was doing that study between 2015 and 2022. So isn't like a decision that's, bad. It's one thing to make a decision that's a bad decision because you made a bad choice, but this is straight up indecision. I mean, it's not making a decision that can, in fact, cost you significantly when it comes to having enough dollars in retirement.
Absolutely. Or some folks probably just didn't even know.
Right.
Had no idea.
Certainly assumed as well. Well, 30 days before the election, as we were talking about at the beginning of the program, we want your vote, right? Everybody's asking for your vote. Well, let us join in on that. And what we're talking about is the Best of Winter Park. Winter Park Chamber of Commerce puts this on annually, a nice little event where at the end of the contest, if you will,
a little award ceremony in the park.
Yeah, it goes over the park. Yeah, and last year we were a finalist, so we certainly appreciate folks that voted for us last year. But it's another year, so so we appreciate your vote this year for your favorite financial planning firm of Nelson Financial Planning. To vote for us, go to the Winter Park Chamber of Commerce Best of Voting, and there you'll be able to find us and click on it, and you can vote for us every day. So that's cool. So
and you can use multiple emails.
Oh, multiple emails as well. Wow. Now you're really gaming the system. So anyway, with that, we will wrap it on up and get on out of here. Thank you for listening to the show. If we can be of help to you during the course of the week, please go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. There you can schedule an absolutely free conversation at any time to talk about whatever it is that might be on your financial mind. So with that, we'll wrap it on up and get on out of here. Thanks for listening to the program.